trying to cheat him before a single ballot has even been cast. Also not true. Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell is back with us. No real surprise here.
Yeah, but he is, as Michael alluded earlier, he's getting better, right? I mean, he's learned from what didn't work in 2020, and he's almost setting the predicate much earlier. And so we have to really inoculate against and guard against intimidation that you're going to see of poll workers or suggestions that it's rigged to try and suppress people from even turning out. And we have to be the party that always prefers voting over violence.
I think that it's important to really kind of stress both those points, that right now what you're seeing is an example of the thinking, meaning they're saying they're looking at the polling, because the polling at one point had Donald Trump up ahead, right? The implication is we're going to win, right? Okay, fine. Now that he's behind, the implication is they're stealing the election. So the idea that they're going to use little metrics like polling, which we know any given day could be anywhere, right? As a basis for making the case to voters, see, they're stealing the election because I was ahead, now I'm behind, therefore something nefarious must be going on. That's how deep into this is going to go, and it's going to get harder once you turn past that corner of Labor Day and everyone is really geared into the election to fight these narratives, because this is all part of the 2025 Project 2025 playbook. To sort of put in motion narratives that undermine our trust in our system.
It is, when we went to break, I'm like, y'all, he didn't learn anything, but you are absolutely right. He learned you got to start a little earlier. You got to say it often in terms of if you want to undermine the election. He is consistent, I would argue, in understanding how to manipulate the conversation. So the very well-meaning people who support him believe what he is saying. I keep going back to that 60 Minutes interview that he did with Leslie Stahl while he was still president. And Leslie Stahl talks about the interview in a panel conversation that she did after the fact, and said that Donald Trump told her when it was just them in the room, her and her producer, that, that's fake news. And she's like, it's just us, really. Like, the cameras are not on. And he's like, I do this because if I say it enough, then the people will not believe what you all report. It's intentional.
When we talk about who's gotten better and who's gotten worse, I also think, though, Democrats have gotten better about understanding that they also need to get out in front of this, both by talking about the potential threat and talking about how enthusiasm is the only antidote. I want you to take a listen to Tim Walz talking about how Democrats, despite all this enthusiasm, remain the underdogs. Take a listen.
Our campaign is the underdog campaign.
Oh, yeah.
And with our joy, we also have to understand that we're still up against some forces.
Yes.
That are trying to divide our country. It pains me the kind of division and the stoking of divisions that has taken place, right? And when we can remind people and create a space for everyone to come where they see each other and say,
magic.
Hey, we're all in this together.
It almost feels like everybody's coming out of their house after a blizzard and, a Minnesota reference, and you shovel out, and then you start talking to your neighbors. How was it the last couple days or whatever it might be?
I think that's exactly right. It feels like we're in like an aftershock.
Yeah. And also, if defeating Donald Trump doesn't motivate you, the spawn of Donald Trump and their potential should, right? Because there are some scary successors out there that he has put in place. Donald Trump is almost 80. It's not a surprise that he picked a 39-year-old, to be his successor. But some of the other scary successors are people like Mark Robinson, who's running to be governor of North Carolina, who has said that the Holocaust is hogwash, who said that women should not have the right to vote, and it's time to start shooting some people. So we have the opportunity, and part of that joy for the country, for our kids, is that not only can we beat Trump, we can bury Trumpism this November, but there's still a lot of work to do.
Right. It feels like we have been living in this particular era of American politics for a very long time now, right? Where we have seen the dark side of American politics come into power. We have seen it ushered out of power, and now we see it vying for complete and total power. And I think that's part of, in your new ad blitz, where you are working to try and engage some voters who have not traditionally been engaged, part of the messaging. So let's look at one of those ads and let's talk about what you're trying to do.
I love you. Have a great day at school.
Dictator
on day one. There will have to be some form of punishment for women. Roe versus Wade was terminated. Fire, fury, bloodbath. Now get in.
You know what, honey? I'm going to drive you today. Besides, can convicted felons even drive school buses?
If you wouldn't trust him with your kid, why would you trust him with your country?
We got about a minute left.
Fair
Who do you think
question.
that reaches?
Moms, normal people, and we need to be more basic and simple in our messaging. For too long, Democrats have been trying to win a Harvard Law School moot court competition, and this is just a gut check.
Would everyone see it that way? But when you follow their link, the one they sent out, go to the YouTube and look at how Democrats and how pro this ticket people are receiving this, it's pretty positive. And they're saying, wow, look at the joy and the energy. And so I think there's a contingent of people that are liking this. And of course, there are a lot of people that are going to say this is cringe inducing and they should be doing real interviews and real sit downs and taking questions from journalists instead of creating content, which is really what this is. But I think there's a contingent of people where this appealed.
Yeah, Tommy, to that end, look, I watched the full thing and it was interesting because it was like I was watching a reality show and it went for 10 minutes. And like, yes, that was the first part, which was, more humorous and light. But then Kamala got into personal stories and the reality show format. I immediately thought, does this work with Gen Z? I mean, I don't know.
It works with Gen Z and it works with millennials. And unfortunately, I think it works with a lot of independent and swing voters as well. And I hate to say that, but it's the truth because they are, to your point, Molly, coming off as very positive. People might not feel positive where they are in their lives right now, but when they see somebody making light of a bad situation and making them feel better, for some people, that's going to work. The people that don't pay attention to the radical policies or how the economy's going or the open border. And unfortunately, there are a lot of voters out there that don't pay close attention to the day-to-day as we all do. That's why I think the Trump campaign really needs to strike a positive tone. They need to make Donald Trump a little bit more relatable, maybe a little bit more positive. We understand that the Biden-Harris administration destroyed America, but every speech from him can't be that because then people are going to say, well, this is just doom and gloom. We want some kind of optimism for the future. Donald Trump can do that. He's a very relatable person. We just need more of that side of him, maybe more with his grandkids. And I know that that seems cheesy, but for a lot of people, relatability and likability matters to them. And they've managed to make Tim Walz and Kamala Harris relatable and likable. Whether they are or not doesn't matter. Perception is reality for a lot of people.
I think that's very wise advice. Laura Trump put out a video of her kids with their grandfather after the conviction.
For our veterans, Trump hosted an event at Bedminster Thursday. He was praising Miriam Adelson, a major Republican donor, whom he bestowed the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2018 to. Here's what he had to say about how important that medal is compared to the other.
That's the highest award you can get as a civilian. It's the equivalent of the Congressional Medal of Honor, but civilian version. It's actually much better because everyone gets the Congressional Medal of Honor. That's soldiers. They're either in very bad shape because they've been hit so many times by bullets or they're dead.
This shouldn't be a surprise to anyone who has followed Donald Trump over the last several years. It was actually a moment of truth for him. He was speaking from the heart, and we've seen how he has attacked veterans like John McCain and retired Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman and other Gold Star family members. But this is a pretty new low even for somebody like Donald Trump, right?
Look, I recall in 2020 when he attacked the parents of Humayun Khan. I recall when he attacked John McCain. I recall when the stories broke about Trump calling veterans suckers and losers. There is an endless pattern of Donald Trump's utter contempt for our military. There's an endless pattern of Trump's hideous degree of just spleen and hatred for them because he thinks they are desperate to be in the military because of their socioeconomic circumstances. He thinks it's like a welfare program that they should be ashamed of. Donald Trump's relationship to the U.S. military has long been one where he thinks that his bluster makes him a leader. He joked about one time always wanting to get the Purple Heart. Well, it's pretty easy, Donald. You could have gotten the Purple Heart if you hadn't been a draft dodger during the Vietnam War, where 58,000 American men sacrificed their lives. Donald Trump spent his time during the Vietnam War, as he bragged about later, chasing women around New York. This is a guy who is beyond contemptuous. All the cliches that the Republicans used to try to put out there about, the Democrats are anti-military, anti-defense, they've been flipped on their head. It's Vice President Harris and Joe Biden who honor our military. It's Donald Trump who has utter contempt for them.
Yeah, not to mention, he has also gone after generals who have served in the military. He went after Mark Milley at the time, the chair of the Joint